Can I get a mic or a mic and a half? That the source owe me. Shout out to the editor staff. Yeah, I'm all grown, so much better with math. I need a spread in the Forbes, taking the Benjamin bath. Yeah, I'm serving this track like Steffi Graf. Yeah, Roger Federer, there's no competitor.
Urban Tennis, Episode 4. Move over, Fred. Welcome back, everyone. We're here after a crazy Wimbledon that ended with the number 1 player facing the number 2 player. So how crazy was it? You tell me. Today's show will largely consist of a wrap-up, the men's draw, the ladies' draw. We're going to look into some doubles. We're going to see how the TV coverage was. Hopefully provide some feedback on that. And then obviously we like our games at the end, our social media highlight, and definitely a special outro for all those listening. So let's get started. History was made this past Sunday as Andy Murray, the Brit, ended that 77-year drought of a gentleman player from Britain winning. In 1936, Fred Perry was the last one to win. And Andy Murray became the first since then, the first to wear shorts, because Fred Perry had to play in a gentlemanly trouser, and he did it in fairly clean fashion with a fairly routine 3-set win over Novak Djokovic. I think the only thing was that 12-minute last game where he went from three championship points to facing break points, back to championship points. But in the end, I don't think you can say that anybody but Andy Murray deserved it. People will argue that his draw opened up, that he didn't really have to face anybody until the finals, and that Djokovic was coming off that grueling 5-setter against Del Potro. But despite that, Murray was the better player on that Sunday, and just for that, I think he's a deserving winner. And a man who rightfully deserves to take that, the burden off of all those Brits and the drought.
And for his tennis game, now he can take this momentum in his tennis game right into the U.S. Open Series and into the U.S. Open. And furthermore, his popularity couldn't be higher right now. I mean, I believe Wimbledon.com reported that was the highest Wimbledon ratings in a very long time, at least. So among the highest ever. So Andy Murray is hot stuff right now. Hot stuff.
And I think you make a really good point. And just looking at objectively how the narrative changed, even since last year, you had the tearful Andy Murray who took the microphone from Sue Barker's hand and was basically, telling the crowd, I came really close, guys, to then 4 weeks later winning the gold medal at Wimbledon, to then another 2 months later, a month later, winning the U.S. Open. Since then, making the Aussie final, having to pull out of the French, but then feeling very calm and confident coming into this Wimbledon. He's basically, become a rightful champion. Somebody who seemed very shaky, and you could question whether he had that instinct, or even kind of question whether he was going to get one after the Wimbledon final last year. There was no such doubts this year, and he showed it. He carried himself well. There was a challenge by Verdasco, 2 sets down, came back from that. But he had basically the sensibility of a champion, whereas last year he had the vulnerability of basically somebody who had lost.
Yeah, I guess you could say he went from a challenger to a champion this year. And England thanks you, or Great Britain thanks you. I apologize. Great Britain thanks you.
So let's talk about Great Britain. What changes for them? Is their affection with Wimbledon change? A lot of the time you always bring up the drought. This is the first British champions of any kind since 1977 when Virginia Wade won. Do you think that the passion will still be there, or does this possibly affect the shine or the luster or the draw of Wimbledon in the future?
I think for an outsider, like outside countries may look at it differently, but I think within Great Britain, I think it will only increase how it's perceived. Right? Look at the Boston Red Sox after 2004. Right? Sure, they broke an 86 year drought, but baseball couldn't be more popular after that. So I think we're going to see a similar trend at Wimbledon next year and the year after that. I mean, tennis is going to be a big deal in Great Britain. Of course, we have Laura Robson coming up too on the women's side. So we're going to see a little bit. We are seeing a big swing in British tennis, I think. And I think it's going to continue.
Yeah, I tend to agree with my co-host. Wimbledon is such a venerable event anyway that people come just for the sake of Wimbledon. But I think British tennis fans really feel that they're in a basically golden era again where they can win any of these tournaments. So I think once you get one, they're going to be greedy and they're going to look for more success from Andy Murray. So I think the next couple of years are going to be pretty exciting on the men's side, especially if Andy Murray is competitive again. Moving on to the ladies' side, we had a surprise final with the 15th seed Marion Bartoli thoroughly dominating a vulnerable and basically someone whose nerves got to her, 23 ranked Sabine Lisicki. But before we talk about Bartoli and her story, Wimbledon's narrative early on was a lot of upsets, and I think the women's side had more than anyone else. How do you think, first starting off with Azarenka pulling out and then Sharapova's upset and then Serena's upset, how do you think that affected, I don't know, either the confidence or the quality of tennis, and what did you make overall of the ladies tournament?
Well, I thought it was still thoroughly entertaining. I think Bartoli and Lisicki still played a very entertaining final, and the semifinals were I still found pretty enjoyable. I think what happened, which was clear, was as people saw Serena drop and Sharapova drop, I think a lot of the people who are only interested in certain players started to lose interest. So I think that might have hurt some excitement on the whole, but I think the actual tennis on court wasn't affected at all.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially Sabine Lisicki, she was involved in, I think, two of the better matches. The Serena match was very good, and then the Aga Radwanska semi was a great contrasting styles and, really, really captivating thing when she came back 3-love in the third set. But I do think, tennis, it's the sport of front runners. You get linked to names and you like these names advancing. So if they go out early, you kind of tune out. But I think the tennis was still was really, really superb. You had a lot of up-and-comers that possibly we will be seeing in the next couple of years. Lisicki, Sloane Stephens. You had some great stories by veterans, Bartoli, Flipkins. So I think people did miss out. I don't think it was any worse of a ladies tournament. It just was missing those marquee names. But let's talk about the woman who reigned supreme, the 07 finalist, who basically, has been middling to anywhere from 10 to 20 in the last 5 years, was really never thought of somebody who would come back and be a title contender again. But to talk about Marion Bartoli is to talk about basically resilience and perseverance. Her training regimen, her coaching style, her basically special skill set is unique to the game, and that she never really varies from it. She's always working hard. The results may never match how she works, but you knew that if she was given the opportunity, she could string together 7 victories, and I'm really kind of happy for her that she got that chance. Her relationship with her dad has been so dynamic and so unique to the tour that it really could not have come to somebody better. It's almost like that, the cherry on top for a career that, maybe never would have happened if she wasn't such a hard worker and such a great thinker.
So sorry to make another baseball reference, but I always think of Marion Bartoli as a knuckleballer. So she always plays an unorthodox style, so it leads to unpredictable results. And here, like you said, it led to 7 straight victories that worked out for every single match. And other times it hasn't worked out for her. But one thing you can't deny is that she brings it on the court all the time. I mean, and just like another knuckleballer we saw last year, R.A. Dickey in Major League Baseball. Sorry for another baseball reference. She brought the resilience, and everyone loved this story.
You're talking about resilience, but then on the opposite side, we saw Sabine Lisicki basically break into tears while she was serving. Do you think she has the resilient makeup to come back to a big stage like that, or is that somebody that we've seen the last of?
Well, I think she still is supremely talented. So I think we'll see her again. I mean, you don't beat Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova in one tournament.
That's true, and she's only 23. She's always had great success at Wimbledon, so I think it's just a learning step for her. She was probably the best player. She had the best results probably throughout the entire tournament. It was just the fact that Marion Bartoli was better on that last day. So I hope Sabine Lisicki comes back, and hopefully outside of Wimbledon too. She's a good enough player to compete at hard court events. And so it'd be nice to see her all year round. Andy Murray wasn't the only historic performance this fortnight, but we had the Bryan brothers, Mike and Bob, winning their fourth straight Grand Slam. Not a calendar slam yet. They'll have that chance at Flushing Meadows in August, but they won last year's US and then this year's Aussie, French, and Wimbledon, and they're holding the gold medal right now. So basically, almost a year Golden Slam. Just tell us about what this means, just in the context of history, to have these two doing such great things right now.
Well, I think it's the biggest highlight in American men's tennis right now. That can't be denied. But I guess it's just shows the differences in the doubles game now. I think now you're seeing a team like the Bryan Brothers and a few other teams representing different countries who are sticking together for their entire careers versus changing, like, say, every 3-4 years. So that also shows a bit of a change from what we were used to seeing in the doubles game, where you see a lot of changes, a lot of different partners.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also to note that the doubles game, for all those people who are very nostalgic, will never be the same as it was in the 70s or 80s. You're never going to have the best singles players be competing regularly in doubles. You're not going to have Billie Jean King. You're not going to have John McEnroe. You're not going to have Martina Navratilova. So we have to be happy that we have such a great team in the Bryan brothers representing the sport. If the Bryan brothers didn't exist, I don't know if anybody would pay attention to doubles, and that, which is a sad thing, because the majority of people, when they play casually, the easiest way to play is doubles, but doubles obviously never gets the same attention. So I don't think we'll ever get to the quality of doubles players overall as we had in the past, but we really have something special with the Bryan brothers, and I think we should appreciate it while it lasts. Now, looking at the fortnight, Wimbledon is the prestigious event on the tennis tournament, and this is the second year for North American viewers that it was entirely on ESPN. Where last year maybe had some learning curves, this year they had a kind of routine and what they like to do. So do you have any really thoughts of how ESPN did in their second go around? Maybe some things you'd like to see improved, and maybe things you'd like to see, continue.
Well, one thing I'd like to see change is ESPN and ESPN2 split. So if there's the good matches, the better matches on ESPN2, I hope it gets moved to ESPN. I mean, because I know a lot more viewers would be able to get the ESPN coverage versus the ESPN2 coverage. So I think you always want to show the marquee matchup on the main network. But I think other than that, obviously the coverage is very crisp, a lot of good HD. That was pretty. I liked a lot of those side tracking shots they use. So on the baseline, you see the player serving back and forth. It's like you're seeing the ball coming right at you. That's pretty cool. And but I think it'll always be hard to match NBC just because of one thing: the NBC Wimbledon intro. I mean, if you're not familiar with it, please go on YouTube and listen to it. And it may or may not strike a chord in you, but I think it does for me. It's what really got me introduced to tennis, and it'll be hard for ESPN to ever top that.
Yeah, I think everybody really loved the NBC theme, and in some way hope it comes back in some point. But I think the ESPN coverage, I agree that the second week they did a good job in splitting it, court 1 and center court on the two channels. You're never going to like all the personalities on ESPN. But they give you enough balance where you have some more technical voices to more passionate voices. And I think overall they've done a good job. And I think keeping it on one platform instead of, bouncing back from Tennis Channel and even NBC is better for the sport because people know where to find it. We're nearly at the end of this episode, but we like to end off with some popular games that we have on the Urban Tennis Podcast. And this week we're going to do a game of volleys. So basically this or that, reflecting on the Wimbledon fortnight. So first off, who was the bigger shocker? Roger Federer's loss or Serena Williams' loss?
Definitely Serena Williams' loss. I mean, Roger Federer is still a top player in the world, but you could see Roger Federer was having changes in his game this year, and I didn't expect him to lose in the second round, but him losing and not going to the finals was not that big of a surprise compared to Serena Williams losing and not making the finals, of course.
Well, I think it was Roger Federer. Roger Federer losing in the second round of Wimbledon hasn't happened in a decade. It's just, that doesn't happen in tennis. His 36 tournament streak of quarterfinals was snapped. His streak at Wimbledon was snapped. It was just basically jarring, more so than the Serena, more so than Nadal. Okay, the next set of volleys. So for those listening on ESPN or watching on ESPN, had the chance to see Clive Owen narrate some pieces before the ladies' finals and the men finals. So now that Clive Owen has a partnership with ESPN, what would you like to see him narrate next? Sunday Night Baseball or Monday Night Football?
I like to see him narrate Sunday Night Baseball. And I think it's because baseball has those cool little intricacies that a lot of people might not see, like tennis. So I think for people who, especially for people who may not be familiar with the sport, to have Clive Owen introduce the baseball game would be pretty cool.
I agree. I think an English accent introducing baseball would be awesome. Baseball is basically a very beautiful game played out on a sunny day, green grass. I think the tone would really transfer well from Wimbledon to Sunday Night Baseball. So get on that, ESPN.
So a lot of baseball in this episode. So almost a baseball podcast.
Almost. Our last set of volleys is who would you like to see? Who would you like to embrace at the net after your win? The cold ice queen Agnieszka Radwanska, who was pretty chilly towards Sabine Lisicki, or the always amorous Juan Martin Del Potro. What do you think?
Well, definitely the amorous Juan Martin Del Potro. I mean, the whole hug, the little whisper he gives you, it'd be like I finally figure out what happens at the end of Lost in Translation when Bill Murray gives a whisper to Scarlett Johansson. That's like the end of every Del Potro match.
Yeah, I really can't add much more to that. I'm going to go with Del Potro too. Okay, the social media highlight of the week is something we like to do here at the Urban Tennis Podcast, and this week it goes to Andy Murray. Shortly after winning, he tweeted, "Can't believe what's just happened!" Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. And that tweet was retweeted 90,000 times within the first 4 days. So Andy Murray's tweet is our social media highlight of the week. Thanks for listening. You can always read the Urban Tennis blog. Get in touch via YouTube. We're on Pinterest at Urban Tennis. This has been episode 4. Move over, Fred.
Now, which is the worst tennis-playing nation in the world?
Australia.
No, try again.
Australia?
No, try again, but say a different place.
I thought you meant I said it badly.
No, of course you didn't say it badly. Now hurry.
Czechoslovakia.
No, Scotland.
Of course.
And isn't it ironic? Don't you think? A little too ironic. And yeah, I really do think